I think 2 or 3 weeks we've been looking at the life of the Buddha, and in our final week of looking at his life, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Buddha through his friendship with Ananda, who was one of the Buddha's disciples, but really he was his friend. So going to explore something about that kind of friendship today, and recount a few incidents from the time they spent together. So he may be best known, Ananda, actually, for the fact that for the last 25 years of the Buddha's life, he was Ananda was his kind of personal attendant. But really, there's a lot more to the story than that. And it's often said that the Buddha's wisdom is kind of revealed by his teaching, but his compassion is revealed through the Buddha himself, through his kind of personal example. And hopefully we'll get a sense of that by looking at his relationship with Ananda. And of course, it was a friendship that not only lasted sort of this lifetime, but it was a friendship that had survived many sort of previous lives. And actually, so when the Buddha passes away, when the Buddha has his parinirvana, and after the parinirvana, Ananda becomes awakened. So it kind of brings that cycle to a close, because for both of them, it was their last life. And as the Buddha's attendant, Ananda went everywhere with him. He was kind of like his shadow, walking with the Buddha, but always like a kind of like a step behind. And the relationship between the two is really beautifully shown, really, in the Parinirvana Sutta, which is a kind of chronicle of the last year of the Buddha's life, and it just captures their friendship and the sense of their parting, and the kind of sorrow that brought Ananda. So the last few years of the Buddha's life, hadn't been without sadness, actually, because many of the Shakyans, which was the clan from which the Buddha came, and also Ananda came, had been killed in a conflict, and this had included many of their friends and family, and also the Sangha had trouble as well, and Devadatta, who was the cousin of both Gautama, the Buddha, and Ananda, had tried to wrestle control of the Sangha from the Buddha. So this was a real kind of it's like a schism in the Sangha, and the Buddha was very he was very harsh on Devadatta, and there's a quote where he says, hopefully a slide will pop up in a moment, but he says to Devadatta, he says, "Enough, Devadatta, do not aspire to govern the community. I would not hand on its leadership to Moggallana or Shariputra, who were his chief disciples." And he goes on to say, "How could I do so to a wretch like you, who should be vomited out like a ball of spit?" And following this, so Devadatta, who I said was one of the Buddha's cousins, he launches a series of attempts on the Buddha's life, including he sends a kind of gang to kill him, and he tries hurling this big rock down on the Buddha, and finally he lets loose this rampaging and supposedly drunken elephant in the path of the Buddha. And in this last incident, Ananda steps he like steps in front of the Buddha to protect him, and the Buddha tells him to move, and Ananda refuses. So the Buddha, he's required to use his supernatural powers to move Ananda aside, and it's a really lovely tale. And the Buddha, he subdues the elephant by stroking it and speaking to the elephant with loving kindness. So yeah. So I'm going to just say a little bit about Ananda becoming the personal attendant of the Buddha. So this was well, both Ananda and the Buddha were in their kind of mid-50s, and the Buddha, he calls together a meeting of the monks, and he says, in my 20 years as leader of the Sangha, I have had many different attendants, but none of them have really filled the post perfectly. Again and again, some willfulness has become apparent. Now I am 55 years old, and it is necessary for me to have a trustworthy and reliable attendant. So many of like the senior monks kind of offered their services to the Buddha, but actually the Buddha didn't accept any of them, and then finally the like elder monks, they looked at Ananda, who had kind of held back out of modesty, and they said that he should kind of volunteer for this role. And when he was asked why he hadn't volunteered, he said that the Buddha himself knew who would be the best person. So he had so much kind of confidence in the Buddha that the Buddha would choose the right person and would know who the right person was. Yeah, for the job. Yeah. And actually, so Ananda, he asks the Buddha. He asks him. He says he will accept becoming the attendant, but he asks the Buddha that he may be present whenever the Buddha gives the teaching, and if he wasn't present, he asks that the Buddha will repeat it to him. Yeah. So when we hear at the beginning of every sutta the familiar refrain, "Thus have I heard," it is always Ananda recounting the teaching of the Buddha. I'm just conscious. Can you just bear with me, because I'm just conscious that my laptop, I just need to go and get the charger for it. So just can you just give me a minute? My laptop was starting to tell me it was going to run out of juice. Okay. So Ananda was also known. He was known really because of his fabulous memory. He was known as the guardian of the Dharma, and the Buddha spoke of him as being the living embodiment of his teachings. And once when he was asked by a follower how the followers should honour the Dharma, the Buddha said, if you wish to honour the Dharma, householder, go and honour Ananda, the guardian of the Dharma. Yeah. So for after he became the Buddha's kind of attendant, he was the constant companion, really, you know, and friend and help of the Buddha. And it's said that he brought water for washing Gautama's face and a toothpick for cleaning his teeth. He arranged his seat, washed his feet, massaged his back, fanned him, swept his cell, and mended his robes. And later on, after the Buddha's death, Ananda would say, and I'm just going to read a little verse out about what Ananda said of the Buddha, and hopefully a slide will appear. Thanks, Ed. So he said, for 25 years I served the Blessed One. I served him well with loving deeds, like a shadow that does not depart. For 25 years I served the Blessed One. I served him with loving speech, like a shadow that does not depart. For 25 years I served the Blessed One. I served him well with loving thoughts, like a shadow that does not depart. Okay. And actually, Ananda and the Buddha they had spent their whole lives together. They'd been born on the same day, and in fact, they'd been born into the same caste, the warrior caste of the Shakyan clan, and they'd grown up and played together. And the Buddha's father was Ananda's uncle, and you know, one day the Buddha leaves his family and he goes forth into the homeless life, and he's away for, it's said that he was away for 7 years, and Ananda had no news of the Buddha. But then sometime after the Buddha's enlightenment, the Buddha returns to Kapilavastu, the town that they'd lived in, the town of his birth. And his reception is really mixed. Shortly after his arrival, the Buddha's father sees the Buddha out making his arms round. And in anger, he says, "How can a Shakyan beg in the street, barefoot and wearing rags?" And the Buddha, he just rejects these kind of worldly values, and he replies, "I am not of the Shakyan lineage, but of the Buddha lineage, and I beg because that is what Buddhas do." And it's really interesting. So the Buddha's father is kind of disgusted at seeing the Buddha sort of begging for alms in the street. But the visit of the Buddha back to his hometown has a huge impact on those he'd grown up with. And Ananda and others see their friend, and they kind of see the sort of light in his eye, and they see what he has found and what he's discovered, and they see the kind of vision that he has discovered. And so Ananda and the Buddha, two other of the Buddha's cousins, Anuruddha and Devadatta, the same Devadatta who later tried to kill the Buddha. They all three of them go forth. So they go forth, they leave their homes, and they follow the Buddha. And as I said, Ananda and the Buddha had spent many lives together. They had been friends over many lifetimes. And in the Jakarta tales, they are often represented as being brothers, which is a sort of symbol for their friendship. Okay, so I'm just going to say a little bit about the kind of final journey that is depicted in the Parinirvana Sutta, which just talks about the last year of the Buddha's life. And he and Ananda embark on a kind of last journey, and they take a tour of kind of northern India, and the Buddha stops on the way, and he gives teachings. And there comes a time when Ananda and the Buddha they take refuge in as the monsoon starts, and they go to this small village, and they spend a few weeks meditating. But eventually, the rain and the damp causes the Buddha to become seriously ill, and he says to Ananda, hopefully I've got another slide. Yeah, thanks, Ed. He says, I'm an old and aged man, Ananda who has done his time and reached old age. I have turned 80, and just as a worn-out cart is kept going with the help of repairs, so it seems is my body, only kept going with repairs. So, Ananda, you should live with yourself as your island of refuge, and not someone else, with the truth as your refuge, not someone else. It's just something really nice about that kind of teaching he gives. And then so the Buddha becomes very ill, and but they carry on with their journey, and everywhere he goes, the Buddha reminds his followers just to kind of carry on practicing with sort of determination and faith. And then one day they have a meal with a metalsmith, Chunda, who serves them a meal that makes the Buddha very, very ill. And although the Buddha is very near to death, but still they press on with their journey. And they meet this traveller who gives the Buddha a set of golden robes. And the Buddha puts them on, and Ananda exclaims that against his body the golden robes seem pale and dull. And he says, "This is remarkable, sir. This is extraordinary. Your skin is so pure and clear." And the Buddha says, "There are two occasions on which the Tathagata's skin is very pure and clear. The night on which he reached perfect enlightenment, and the night he attains parinirvana. So tonight, between two sal trees, the parinirvana of the Tathagata will occur." So this is the passing. This is the passing of the Buddha from his physical body, and this has a great effect on the Buddha. On Ananda. Yeah. He says, "I am still a pupil with much to be done, and my master is about to pass away from me, he who is so kind." And this is always one of my kind of favorite quotes from the scriptures, because there's something about it. Ananda had faithfully served the Buddha for 25 years, and he had witnessed many profound teachings and all the kind of power of the Buddha and his kind of mastery over himself. And yet, what he remarks on with regards to the Buddha is his kindness. He doesn't remark on his wisdom or his enlightenment, or his fearlessness, but just his sort of capacity for human kindness. And this is the impression, after many lifetimes that they've spent together, this is his impression of the Buddha, his kind of compassion and his humanness. And this is what inspired him. Yeah. And actually, Sangha has talked about this comment being the kind of origin of the Bodhisattva ideal. Okay, so I'm just going to talk. I'm slightly conscious of time actually, so I'm just going to mention one other incident. So the story has the story after the Buddha's passing away. It has a kind of happy ending in that Ananda becomes enlightened. Yeah, but as I've said, really, their relationship is one of friendship. It wasn't just that the Buddha was Ananda's master. And after the two had been on retreat once, Ananda said to the Buddha, and many of you will be familiar with this, he said, "Spiritual friendship is half the holy life," meaning that the other half was one's own efforts. But the Buddha says, "Not so, it is the whole of it." A true friend, Gautama says, gives what is hard to give. He does what is hard to do. He endures what is hard to endure. He reveals his secrets to you. He keeps your secrets. When misfortune strikes, he doesn't abandon you. And when things are going badly, he doesn't look down on you. Such a friend would never let you down and would even sacrifice his life for you. So in a way, I think the story of Ananda and the Buddha is one chiefly about the importance of friendship in the spiritual life. So that's all I've got to say.